Welcome to the Explainer. So, you're gearing up for your ISCE board exams, and you know mensuration can be a total beast. Well, today we're going to crack it wide open. I'm going to give you the blueprints, the cheat codes, and we'll even do a step-by-step takedown of a really important problem. Ready? Let's get right into it. Okay, let's just kick things off with a huge question. What if you could walk into your exam already knowing the type of question that's most likely to show up? We're talking a full 4 marks here. So, what is it? Well, here it is. Looking at past papers and all the trends, the smart money is on a question that mixes two things. Type A problems, that's the whole melting and recasting deal, and those kind of tricky hollow cylinders. That combination, that's our target for today. Okay, section 1, decoding the question types. Look, before we can solve anything, we've got to understand its blueprint, right? So in this first part, we're going to decode the main types of questions you're going to face. So pretty much every single mensuration problem you'll ever see fits into one of these 3 buckets. First, you've got your type A. That's all about converting solids, melting a big sphere to make a bunch of little cones. Then there's type B, which is combining solids. Think of it like sticking a cone on top of a hemisphere. And finally, type C is all about the flow of water, like figuring out how much is gushing through a pipe into a tank. Honestly, just being able to spot which type of problem you're looking at, that's half the battle right there. Okay, let's zoom in on the 2 big ones, conversion versus combination. It's super important to get the difference. With conversion, the key thing to remember, the absolute golden rule, is that the volume stays the same. So the volume of that big original shape is exactly equal to the total volume of all the little shapes you make from it. Now for combination, it's a totally different game. Here, we're usually talking about surface area. When you join 2 shapes, you're adding up all the outside surfaces that are still showing. All right, section 2, your formula cheat code. So we've got the blueprints down. Now you need the tools. But look, instead of just trying to cram a giant list of formulas into your head, I'm going to show you a super simple trick, a cheat code really, for figuring them out on the fly. And here it is, the base area trick. This isn't just a trick, it's a way of thinking. It helps you actually understand where these formulas come from. And trust me, once you get this logic, you will never have that moment of panic where you blank on a formula in the middle of an exam, ever again. And it's honestly this easy. Just 3 steps. Step 1, just look at your 3D shape and figure out its flat base. So for a cylinder, the base is just a circle, right? Step 2, find the area of that base. The area of a circle, pi r squared. And step 3, you just multiply that base area by the height. And boom, that's your volume. And what about a cone? Well, a cone is basically just a third of a cylinder. So you do the exact same thing, but multiply by times 1/3 of the height. Simple as that. And here's the trick in action. Check this out. For both the cylinder and the cone, the base is the same, a circle. Area is pi r squared. For the cylinder's volume, you just multiply by h, giving you pi r squared h. For the cone, you just take 1/3 of that. That's it. See what I mean? It's all about logic, not just memorization. All right, section 3, a step-by-step takedown. Okay, we've got our blueprints, we've got our tools. Now it's time to put it all together and actually solve something. We're going to do a full step-by-step takedown of that big 4-mark problem we talked about at the start. So here's our target problem. We've got a hollow cylinder, it's 21 centimeters high. The problem tells us 2 things. The sum of the curved surface areas, that's the inside and the outside, is 1320, and the volume of the actual metal used is 1155. Our job? Find the 2 radii, the big R and the little r. Now, I know this looks a little intimidating, but we're going to break it down piece by piece. Okay, step 1 is always the most important. You got to turn those words into math equations. So that first piece of info, the sum of the curved surface areas, gives us our first equation right here. Then the volume of the metal. Well, what is that? It's just the volume of the big outer cylinder minus the empty space, the inner cylinder. And what's cool is that formula simplifies really nicely using the difference of squares. All right, step 2, let's start solving. We'll take that first equation, the one for the surface area. We just plug in the numbers we know. H is 21, and we'll use 22/7 for pi. You do a little bit of calculation, and what pops out? The sum of the radii, r plus r, is exactly 10. Perfect. That's the first piece of the puzzle solved. Okay, step 3. Now that we know r plus r is 10, we can take that value and plug it straight into our second equation, the one for volume. So now we know pi, we know h, and we know r plus r. The only thing we don't know in that whole equation is r minus r. So we just solve for that, and we get 1.75. And that's our second piece of the puzzle. So now look what we have. Two super simple equations, r plus r equals 10 and r minus r equals 1.75. This is just basic algebra from here. Solving these two together is a piece of cake. And we get our final answers. The big external radius r is 5.875 centimeters, and the small internal radius r is 4.125 centimeters. And just like that, problem solved. Okay, section 4, securing every last mark. Listen, getting the right answer is awesome, but in the exam hall, you have to make sure you secure every single mark you've earned. This last part is all about dodging those silly, careless mistakes that can cost you big time. So to get those full marks, you just need to burn these 3 golden rules into your brain. First step, units. I cannot stress this enough. Always double check if your units are consistent before you start calculating. Second, pi. Look, unless the question literally screams at you to use 3.14, you should always use 22/7. That's just the ICSE standard. And finally, number 3, rounding. If you get some long, crazy decimal as your answer, the standard procedure is to round it to 2 decimal places. And that's a wrap. You now get the different question types. You've got a killer trick for the formulas, and we just walked through a seriously tough problem together. You've got the tools, you've got the blueprint. So the only question left is, what are you going to solve next?